Good morning, day 65. We have a little bit of rain and clouds this morning, but we've got a little break in the rain. And it's it's 60s. I don't really need this coat, but that's okay. Um, 65 days into this, and I'm like, every day, I'm like, am I really going to have something new to talk about every day? And that is like a testimony to the power of God's word. I mean, it speaks something new to me every day I read it, and it's applicable. I think that's part of what this whole adventure and maybe even internal challenges, not only with myself for just getting up and getting going and more productive earlier in the day and getting over myself, but maybe even there's a part of me that like, God, is this really true? Like, how practical really is your word? I should know better than to challenge God. But he's like, I can take it. Like, I'll show you. I've been doing this forever. And dealing with you silly humans forever and your hard-headedness. So in my professional careers, plural. Oh, you hear the train in the background. I work. I've done this for years in various roles as kind of like a project manager. But and real estate is kind of like a project. You have a starting point. It's a project to buy a house, and all the components of that, and keeping all the teams working together, and all having a common goal, but having their own roles to make it happen. And then there's the project manager making sure everybody's like doing what they're supposed to be doing and making it happen. And, changing a habit is not unlike managing a project. You've got a common goal. It's hard to do it just on your own. Oftentimes you need a coach, you need a support system, you need knowledge, you need a lot of things to make that project happen. A lot of us don't really fully understand that, and then we try to do it all by ourselves through sheer willpower, and then wonder why we feel like we're chasing our tails or on a hamster wheel. So and the birds are back making noise. Anyway, where was I? Yes. The concept today to unpack is trusting the process. And it's a phrase that a lot of you hear bantered about, and you're probably like, what does that really mean? But there is a process to managing a project or to reaching a goal. And it ebbs and it flows, and you have to have sort of contingency plans. You've got to cooperate. You've got to do a lot of the things that we've already been talking about this past week. Commitment, going all in. I'm going to get rained on here. This is exciting. Those of you that listen to this, you're probably like, what's happening there? So, yeah, I'm going to walk back to the shelter. Luckily, y'all, I should show you, those of you that are watching this, I have a little shelter for the days when I have weather to contend with. I can still get out and have a shelter. Isn't that nice? And it's right there, by the parking, so I can just walk right to it. It's very nice. Okay, I think it's just going to be a spitting situation here. Okay, so trusting the process. Oh, man. And the examples that led me to really meditate, the scripture I was meditating on, and where God was speaking this to me, and it's very relevant in my life, as is often the case. You get the message you need. So if you're needing a message, go into the Word yourself and see what he says. And you really do have to meditate on it. I think that was a lot of the trusting the process, or I wasn't really fully trusting the process even with reading the Bible. I was reading it, but I wasn't really taking my time with it. I was speed reading and just thinking I would just get it and it would make sense. But you really do have to then, just like with eating your food, you have to send it, through your digestive tract to really extract the nutrients on it. That's a process that takes time. Talk about trusting a process. But the same thing kind of has to happen with the word. It needs to go into your brain and into your heart. And you really need to take time with it to really let it do its thing and you get what you need out of it. So after reading several pages of basically a story on repeat, King so-and-so is king of Israel, so-and-so is king of Judah. Most of the kings of Israel are completely bad and doing what is wrong in God's eyes. And then Judah, the kings of Judah are getting it somewhat right, but still allowing shrines and pagan things to happen. So they're kind of like straddling the fence with God. And they're following God, but they're allowing people to do whatever they want and follow whatever God they want, in addition to the God. Then Hezekiah arrives on the scene, and he is not this type of king. He is a king that is like completely faithful. He tears down the shrines and the altars and the idols, the whole 9 yards. It says, nope, we are following the Lord. This is what is happening. And so you can see God's probably going to be pleased with Hezekiah and be on his side. And Hezekiah, there is a king, I'm going to try to get his name right, Sennacherib of Assyria, who's risen to great power. He has just demolished every, territory and kingdom and people that he has come into contact with. Hezekiah tries to negotiate and live in peace with this king. And he says, fine, I will pay you a tribute. Tell me what you want so that you'll kind of leave us alone and we'll live in peace together. Okay, now this is where you're going to have to stick with me. I might have to go back in my car. Hopefully the rain is coming for a minute and I'm under a tin roof. I wish I had somebody here that could tell me they heard me. But that's okay. Hopefully y'all can hear me. I'm holding the phone pretty close and I'll raise my voice a little bit. So, the analogy that came to my mind when you bring it down to our individual process that we need to trust in the overall project of changing a habit is we often let something in our lives get to a point where it has a lot of power over us. So King Sennacherib of Assyria is going to represent that big thing. So stay with me, track with me, pick up what I'm putting down. So you probably got if you're human, you've got something probably in your life that you're allowing to be pretty important. And you probably let it get to a point where it's like maybe causing a little pain, disruption. You've let it get pretty big in your life. And then you kind of get tired of it, right? You're like, oh, this needs to go. You're overeating, you're overworking, you're underworking, you're over Netflixing, you're either overing or undering something to an extreme in your life. You have a out of whack, out of balance relationship with something that you're doing for most humans. at some point in their life. So you probably are with me now. So we'll pretend while we're talking about Hezekiah, Hezekiah is you, me. Hezekiah represents the person, the average person who has allowed this thing to be so big in their life that then we start trying to make peace with it or negotiate with it. Okay, maybe we can live in peace together if I'll and then we start even trying to put rules maybe around it. Like for me, it was had a daily wine habit, and there were times when I would like, well, I won't drink on the weekdays, only Friday and Saturday nights, or if I have one on a weekday, I'll limit it to 2. And every time I would go to the store, I'd maybe only buy 1 bottle. I was always so hopeful. But eventually that thing is like, no, this is not enough. I am going to conquer you. I'm going to take you out. And then you're going to God, to yourself, to whoever, or within yourself going, I'm not playing this game anymore. You're finally kind of ready to throw down the gauntlet and maybe do something about it. And not just negotiate it with it. Because this thing has said, I don't want your negotiations. I want to conquer you. Yeah, so this is where the process begins. When you get that point of decision where you're like, okay, I'm either just going to accept this as part of who I am and part of my life and how it's just going to be, until maybe it either takes me out or it gets more painful. So you kind of you stand in that gray area. We talk in the sober, curious world, or the sobriety world, or addiction world. It's not just about alcohol. We talk about a gray area, like there's a spectrum and compare it often to a pitcher plant. So some people are maybe wake up or want to do something about this earlier in the process. Some wait till it just gets so bad, their life is on the line. So depending on where you are. Anyway, Hezekiah, what he does is he goes back to God and he's like, look, God, I know I'm doing everything. I love you. I am for you. I'm not divided in these other areas of my life spiritually. So I know that you are my God. You're going to help me. And we can do that directly with God, depending on where you are in your spiritual life. Maybe you're trying to do this all on your own human strength, but you've got to have that sort of conversation with yourself, with God, or with universe, whatever. For me, y'all are starting to learn me. If you're listening to me for the first time, I'm a Jesus girl, so that is my perspective, that I am with I'm tracking with Hezekiah. I'm like on my knees with the Lord, going, Lord, just show me who you are. And that's what he does. Show my kingdom, show me who you really are. I'm doing everything I can to demonstrate that I believe in you, and I know that you are for me. But I need to conquer this thing. This thing needs to be put in its place. And, of course, we're talking back about the Assyria and the king Sennacherib. But you can name that whatever your bad habit is, that you've got to put that in its place. And there's a process to that. And so the first process that we often go through is a bargaining or a negotiation. And then we kind of, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, also in the world of grieving, in psychology, she coined a term called DABDA. It's a process of grief where we have denial. So we had all these other kings before kind of denying. Then there's acceptance. Oh, we're doing something bad. Hezekiah came along. He kind of accepted what was happening. And he maybe did what was right with his worship and getting rid of some idols. But then there's still some bargaining that's being had over here. So it's denial, acceptance, bargaining, depression. No, anger. That's right, anger. I got it backwards. Acceptance is the final step in that process. So sometimes you go through that also in your journey of wrestling with a bad habit, because there's part of you that still really wants it. You're angry at yourself, at the thing, for having to let it go, for it becoming something that used to be fun and comforting for you, and now it's, become this big angry thing, that you're angry with, and trying to so you're angry about that. Then you try to bargain with it, and then you might even do a little bit of depression or sadness about it, ugh. And then you move into the next stage of being able to go, okay, I accept this is what's happening now. What are we going to do about it? So there's a little bit of parallel or that happens similar in a habit change or when you're wanting to make a big change in your life. Maybe it's even a career change. Heck, we've just been through 2 years of a pandemic at the time of this recording, and all kinds of, the whole world has been on a massive reset, either because of what we've gone through. You're kind of being forced to maybe change careers or change your lifestyle, change where you live, change how you live. We've been forced to go through a lot of things. A lot of us went through this as a nation, as a world. We denied it at first. Can this really be happening? Oh, it won't not last for very long. And then we kind of got angry. A lot of people got angry about it. And, so you can see how this process kind of even plays out collectively. So anyway, back to the story and how this happened. So Hezekiah then he's over here bargaining with the right person now, with the Lord, going, okay, I can't bargain with the thing over here that's trying to control me. I'm going to go to the right place and bargain over here and ask for help. I'm going all in. I'm going to do what it takes to put this thing in its place. And then we see a new prophet finally arrive on the scene. So Elisha, we talked about all last week, his life ended, and then of course it was all these kings that were not doing good things. And then Hezekiah arrives on the scene. He's a good king. He's for the Lord. And as Isaiah, a new prophet, arrives on the scene. And he prophesies that let's not worry about the king of Assyria. God has got this all planned out. He allowed Assyria to get to this place of power so that he could demonstrate his glory once again. Y'all need reminding again. You need to learn this lesson over and over again. I'm going to come in and save the day. But I had to let it get so bad that you would trust me. You would trust the process. And we kind of go through that individually with wrestling with the thing. We negotiate with it. Then we surrender to the process. Okay, I can't do this on my own. I've got to join a group. I've got to maybe get a therapist or a coach or a counselor. I've got to get a support system. I've got to make some plans. I got to do this thing. And I've got to go all in with this, because this thing is too hard to conquer on my own, and it's not going to be negotiated with. And it's got to just go away and leave me alone. And I've got to trust the process. So that's part of what Hezekiah is doing here. And then Isaiah comes along and gives the prophecy, I am going to make Israel just go away. They are nothing. He thinks he's something. He thinks he's got all this power. I let him think that, only so I could come in and really show him what a small piece of dirt he is. And then in the final prophecy, when he turns and he gives all of this about the Assyrian kingdom and king, he also then turns to Hezekiah and says, here's what the Lord says to you. In the first year, you're going to grow whatever, you're going to be able to eat whatever's on the ground. And whatever is, whatever's there now, like you're going to barely be in survival mode. Second year, you're going to have a little bit more. Third year, crops are going to start coming in and you're going to be fed. You're going to be taken care of. And that, like, going through a transformation in your own personal journey, that's kind of what it feels like. You're like, I'm having a lot of success, but it's still kind of hard because your own brain, people around you, they've got to, like, when there's a new you in town, there's a lot of other stuff in the background that still has to be dealt with and worked out. And you're still not on steady ground. Like, there's still a lot of practice you have to do, a lot of willpower. You've still got to, it's a long game. True change at a fundamental level is a long game. Second year, you get a little more confident. People are getting used to what's happening with you. Things are settling in. Third year, that you're like, this is who you are. You can start going way beyond what you thought was possible when you were under the rule of this thing. And you're free. You're free, and then there's fruit that is, and crops and harvesting, like, but it takes time. And people that don't understand, much less trust this process, it's raining hard. I probably need to wrap it up anyway. This is where they can really get derailed. Yes, it is raining really hard. So I'm going to have to wrap it up for now. And I probably have said enough for you all to identify with. So bye.